back in 2011, you were hiring for a third-person action adventure, and that was all just the Order, kind of the early days of the Order.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the Order. I mean, is that kind of a, I know Daxter's near and dear to your heart, but is the Order kind of the most important game throughout Ready at Dawn's history, just for the impact there?
I don't know if it's the most. Certainly, I mean, it's only perceived that way because it's been a decade, and for all the stuff that was written and said, and all the things, man, people are still talking about it. So, but it was an incredible challenge. It was just like, I mean, it's never easy. I say it all the time, but some are less easy than others. Mostly, the issue was, when we started. I really think our team did some things that were extraordinary, and I think I can be objective on that side. We innovated on so many fronts, because when we started, even when we finished, I mentioned earlier, at peak, and that's including absolutely everything, and only for a little while, we were like 130, 140, I don't remember. Maybe if you include contractors and things, maybe pushing 150. That's double A game, and this was back then, but it was still half of what other studios trying to compete at that level were requiring. So we knew from the beginning we had to do things differently if we wanted to even have a shot. So we pointed all towards productivity and efficiency. We had to come up with methods. So a lot of the things we did back then, we were in a really great position technology-wise. The audiovisual side, I think we really nailed it, and we did so early. We were the first major game to really use a physically based rendering solution. We developed this whole 3D, we built freaking 3D scanners. We were able to take like pieces of fabric from Victorian times and scan them. It's so perfect. It's just down to, all of this stuff was new. Our 3D scanning stuff was amazing. The material system that we developed, this is all things that now is completely commonplace, but we had to, because we couldn't possibly create that world with the number of people that we had without coming up with new solutions that made it much more efficient to do so.
Right.
So, unfortunately, as things go, there's always, in at least in some part, we also paid the price, because when we showed our 2011 prototype, people honestly didn't even believe. People at Sony were saying, you guys are saying that you can have this look like this on a PlayStation 4. And we were saying, we think we can make it better than this. And we certainly did. We can make it look better than this and sound better than this and be just as fluid and as wonderful to experience. Yeah. And they were all very skeptical. They didn't.
This is like Shu and stuff back in the day, or who was the main? Was it Shu?
What? Well, at the beginning, I don't want to talk about people specifically, but at the beginning, Ru was the one again. He took 6 months with one of the Sony guys. He was the head of Sony Santa Monica at the time. We had worked with them on God of War, did 2 games. We had a wonderful relationship with them. And Shu was still in charge. He was still in the US. So Ru worked for 6 months to really define the deal and to do everything and to make this project happen. And in the 21 years, I've never seen our team so excited and so happy as when we started working on this. Man, they were like, every day they were like, holy crap, look at the stuff we're putting out. I mean, they were unbelievably excited and really optimistic about everything. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, things changed as the development progressed. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but when Shu went to Japan, he was promoted. I guess that's the right way to think about it. So he became in charge of the whole thing. A lot of people followed him, and there was a whole shuffle upwards. So we always talk about, as I was saying earlier, leadership. It's a delicate balance. Mm-hmm. One person changes, things change. So everything changed for us after that event. The people we agreed on things have gone.
Like budgets and stuff like that.
Yeah, they were no longer there. They were no longer in charge. They were still up the chain of command, but you can't bypass. It's like the military. You can't just go, hey, hey, shoot. So the amount of friction and everything started to change at that point. And while it was not the only issue that we faced, it certainly did not help development in any way, shape, or form. The fact that we were constantly fighting them about the dumbest, stupidest possible.
Like what kind of stuff?
It's really stupid stuff. But unfortunately, stuff that has to do with contracts but the biggest issue is here's one thing, for example, with the whole publisher developer approach to funding, which is pretty much, it was the only way you can make games. Mm-hmm. I think things are changing a little bit. That's why there are fewer and fewer, almost no independent game developers left. I think there are really any. The few that are, they're huge. I mean, if you count CD Projekt Red or Larian, but they are on a completely different planet. They do their own thing because they hit it so big. Yeah. But the classic developer who needs a publisher, and the publisher makes a contract and you work on advanced royalties, and you get a budget and then you make the game, you got your milestones, and then they publish it and you recoup the budget and then you start making money. That whole model pretty much is gone. Now they're all internal studios or, huge, like there are really like 5. Think about it. 5 game companies left if you really look at the ownership. And then a couple of big independents, which are, again, CD Projekt, right? Yeah. And then everything is under control of just a few. Right. And there's a reason, because that model just did not work. Because there's this, once, like, the way in which Sony dealt with their internal studios, the way their internal studios are given, if you saw the troubles that, for example, again, I don't think like God of War 2018 was an unbelievably tortured development. It was incredibly challenging. We would have been canceled 4 years earlier, like that. There's no way they would have gone through with it. Yeah. But internal studios get it's a different thing. And in a way, it makes more sense. When you're not, and every game is going to have challenges, going to have things. Like, for example, say that you have all these milestones and a milestone come out and maybe it's not exactly what they hoped for, right? There are some things to discuss. I ask you, what sense does it make that the immediate response to that is no payment? You cannot make payroll unless you receive constant stream of payments from the publisher. Yeah. You got 100 people under you. Now all of a sudden it's like, I don't want to say it's blackmail, but it's really what it is. The milestone, you need to rework this. Until then, no payment. So you're constantly under this threat. You can never. How does that help? Tell me. So, okay, no payment, we're going to shut down. The publisher always has all the control. No matter what it is, the publisher has all of it. It starts with the way they use. If you go to publisher school, the first day, the first lesson is always tell developers that their game is amazing when you're pitching. No one is ever going to tell you, no, we don't want this, unless it's really, But if you're dealing with big boys and stuff, it's always, oh yeah, this is amazing. We're totally going to make this, whether you're going to make it or not. Because chances are, you don't even know what's going to happen. Stringing them along until either they're desperate, they need to close the deal, or, maybe something else will happen. Developers are always, they're on a timer. So, but always carry them along. Just give them the impression that it's any day now you're going to get a letter of intent and we're going to start doing this. Yes, we're going to make it. I cannot tell how many friends I've had that would, like, first-time developers who would go and pitch and say, oh my God, they said yes. Mm-hmm. I'm like, really? You go, yeah, absolutely. They say, like next month we're going to have a letter of intent and they want us to see some more stuff. And then 6 months later, they're desperate, right? And they'll sign anything in order to just, anyway. That's the first thing at publisher school. But the second thing is what I call the wink contract negotiation. It goes like this, the wink. Uh-huh. They'll tell you something like, X, we know X is what's needed to make this, but we can only give you Y. If we give you X now, it's never going to fly with the higher ups. You can only get Y. It's either get Y now, but wink, wink, we know X is what you need. As we go along, we're going to renegotiate this part. Right. We assure you we're going to renegotiate this part. We know, you know. Just don't say it out loud. We all agree that's what's going to happen. But for now, just sign this. That accomplishes 2 things. One is you're always in breach of contract. Technically speaking, they can always say, look, you signed Y,
Right.
That's what you signed. So immediately you're screwed. And then also, even if you're not in breach of contract, what are you going to do? Say they don't follow through with what's in the contract. What are you going to do? Sue them? Are you going to sue, these guys? Come on. You're not going to do it. You're screwed anyway. So that's why you signed the Y, because you really have no chance anyway. Whether you sign Y, whether they decide to, you have no recourse. Publishers have all the power, developers are, unless you are, I don't know, Sweeney going to pitch Fortnite 2 to some for some reason, then he can do whatever he wants. A few people have a thing, but for most, even if you're successful, there's nothing you can do.
I mean, is there any option of raising your hand and be like, hey, could we become a first-party studio? Is this going to make things a lot smoother and easier here?
Again, that's a complicated thing also. Okay. And now these days, I mean, there's been a bit of a, arms race to acquire everybody, and there's nobody left. But back then, generally, here's when they acquire you. Again, I hate to sound like a business guy, but there is a business side to all of this stuff that you can't ignore. Yeah. They acquire you because here's how it works. You make a game. Say you're Insomniac.
Exactly. Yep.
You make Spider-Man. Spider-Man turns into a freaking mega hit.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you still have to pay royalties to Insomniac. So first you recoup the budget, and then you're paying Insomniac a royalty. And when you're selling that many copies, all of the money that you're paying, you can deduct from the purchase of the studio flat out. So when the amount of money they would have to pay you reaches a certain target, it's an instant purchase, because that makes more sense.
Gotcha.
Because now all of a sudden, we either continue to do this, plus you want control. At that point, you want absolute control. Yeah. But those discussions, those things are always, you can't just go, hey, acquire us. It doesn't work that way. And especially plus the climate within groups changes, the financial, there is always a goal of some sort that starts again from leadership, and you don't necessarily know what the goal is. So they might be to, it's their strategy. The strategy that the top level future growth depends on. Yeah. And you might or might not be aware, and if you're not only it makes any sense to you. Like, if there is really an internal directive that says games as a service, that's the future, that's where we point everything, and that's the long-term strategy. Yeah. Your options and your decisions might be limited just because of that. Yeah. So anyway, as things went on, the struggles were real. And one of the problems that we had, I know it sounds absurd, but for example, our first milestones, we were the talk inside of Sony. The stuff that the order was doing was so amazing. They loved our milestones, our slices, but we needed time to do the other stuff. And we had there was a particular milestone where we said, you're going to get gray boxes, you're going to get ugly shit running poorly, because we need to work on these systems, we need the time. And I kid you not, we get back, we can't show this to the higher ups, they're going to lose faith. We need to see the same level of fidelity that we saw before. We can't show this. Yeah. I'm like, well, we'll get back to that, but we need to do this. And
this is the kind of using the magnet gun and stuff like that to kind of deform stuff.
That's exactly the thing. Then they say, milestone has failed, no payment. And now the you do. Now, you're already on a unbelievably crunchy timeline as it is. Right. And now you have to take months to make shit look better just because someone needs to feel that, they're not regressing. Yeah. So it makes no sense. And you fight, but at the end, all of this is distraction. All of this is taking a toll, and it comes over and over again, and all kind of, once the relationship turns into this constant attrition, it's very difficult to and sometimes people still manage. In our case, I think, and maybe we should have fought harder with certain things. Maybe it was us. Maybe, at the end, the responsibility is, me and Rue. And maybe we should have been more forceful for some things. And make different decisions. It's always easy to make different decisions. We really thought with the order that we had set up such a unique and appealing baseline that people were going to forgive some of the shortcomings.
Yeah.
It didn't, and I can't blame them. It makes sense. But it would have been an incredible sequel. I can tell you that for a fact. We pitched the sequel to Sony, in fact, regardless of all of this stuff. And in a way, it's better that they passed, because if we thought we were going to be screwed before, man, with the sequel, we would have signed our, life away. We were going to do it just because we wanted to deliver it to the players, but we would have been...
Just because the budget would have been so much higher. Okay.
The budget would be small. We
small.
would be complete at the mercy of any decisions and things, because we had no leverage whatsoever. We were not in a position to negotiate a reasonable contract. They could have done whatever. But we would have taken it because we wanted a chance to, redeem the franchise, which I thought we certainly had a shot, because all of the groundwork was really, really good. I can tell you that for a fact. It was like, there was so much there that just needed to be built on. We could have 100%. If you look at the difference between just Ghost of Sparta and Chains of Olympus.
Yep.
Chains of Olympus, in a way, even to Daxter, is like, it's a progression. You put together a foundational springboard, and then you really have a chance. This happens a lot. And it happens a lot with this kind of games, where because we started from scratch again, there's such a huge pain of building technology for yourself. With the PSP, we had no choice. But then it became kind of our approach to everything was always do our own technology and try to innovate in some ways, on the, not just on the game side, but on the technology side.
Yeah. And they're just looking at a number, just the total sales number, and they're like, we just don't think it's not crash.
No, I don't think it was I don't think it was the sales. I think it was the critical reception. That's the thing. Sony is a very proud group, and they're rightfully so. And the critical reception, if even been just in the 70s, we would have had the sequel, I'm convinced. Just a few points more, it would have been okay. But because it got into the 60s on OpenCritic or whatever, Metacritic, it's death. And again, I appreciate people's decisions and prerogatives. And like I said, the relationship, I can tell you that our relationship with the team at Sony Santa Monica was great. I mean, they really wanted the sequel. They really wanted the stuff. But someplace around the chain of command, someone said no.
Was it what everybody wanted, where the sequel was going to be 1986? No? It was like set in the same timeline?
Way better than that.
Come on, man. What year? Give me the year.
I can't. Again, this is, if it belonged to me, I'd tell you, but it doesn't. This is all Rue stuff. You talk to him, send him an email. Say,
give me his email.
I want to know the sequel they've been. I mean, I don't think anybody, even at the team, knew. Rue confided in me only where the whole thing was going to go. I mean, the sequel, people knew where it was going to be, because, of course, we pitched an actual sequel. So it was quite well developed. But the overall story and evolution of it would have been amazing. Again, even the first game, one of the problems is that so much was cut, that a lot of the more subtle narrative parts were lost.
Right.
Because so much was chopped away, and things that were supposed to be interactive became a movie, and things that we were like desperate, we had to ship. We need another year.
Yeah.
That's the reality. We need at least one more year.
Yeah.
We didn't get it, so we're like, cut. This is I'll tell you one thing I never told anybody. There was one time I was playing a build. It's in the warehouse, and I went down the stairs. Press button down. Press an animation to go down the stairs. That's already should tell you. And I go down, and then I said, "Oh, I want to go back and explore some more." And I tried to go back, and it won't let me. And I remember talking to the person next to me. I said, I can't go back on this. There's a bug. I can't go back up the stairs. And he goes, no, you can't, because we don't have a system for the ladders. So everything is a special script, and we don't have time to do the ones that don't matter like this. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get destroyed. And the reality is, again, you make those calls because there was nothing else you could do. It was, you had to, they would put it on the shelf, whatever was there. So you have to do what you can. Like I said, when we did the tests, they do the mock reviews and all these other things, the test reviews. it was one of the rare cases where the output of that did not actually reflect the critical reception afterwards.
It was higher?
It was way higher. It was not, I mean, we're not talking, Last of Us higher,
right.
But we're talking enough that would have been, mid-70s. That's what we were getting.
Sure.
So it was decided, okay, that's, that might be all we can get for now. And so if that had been what would have happened, we would have had a chance to redeem it and build on it. Yeah. But it is what it is.
How many copies did it end up selling?
Again, I'm not at liberty because they don't really tell us exactly. Maybe Rue knows, but it's I've heard things, but I wouldn't want to say things that I know for a fact that are accurate. Sure. But the sales were pretty decent in spite of the fact that, again, the game was, it was not God of War 2018 sales, again, right. But in perspective, it certainly was, there was an eagerness to like the game. People didn't, but they wanted to like it. So it should be enough to where you say, okay, I think if we do it right, if we deliver quality continuation, people will embrace it.
Yeah.
I think they would have. But it's a bet you have to take, and it's not for us to take that bet. So they didn't.
You must want to see it on PC someday, right?
Say it again?
Do you want to see it on PC someday?
I would love to see it on PC. I don't know. There are so many things about the game. I still think, for those that haven't, just go listen to the soundtrack if you get a chance. Oh my God, this soundtrack, man. I don't know if, I cry a lot, but I cried so much when we were recording that soundtrack at Abbey Road. It was just, Jason Graves and Austin Wintory made a masterpiece. It's one of the things that kills me. The same thing with so many things about the game, the artwork, the world that was designed, the characters, all of these things. These people are such incredible artists, and they realize their vision so beautifully. It breaks my heart that it did not blossom into what it could have been. So, it's my fault. At the end, it's my freaking fault. But, so I'll take it wherever they place it. I don't think anything's ever going to happen with it, honestly. But and it's also a challenge because, technically speaking, we always owned our own technology. Sony owns the gameplay side and the assets and the IP, of course.
Right.
But we own the technology. Now, I guess the technology is owned by Meta. And it's not like Meta is doing anything with it. I don't even know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who owns what. But doing anything with it right now will be confusing at the very least for anybody.
Did you ever
unless they start from scratch.
Right.
Sony could potentially just start over and use a completely different thing. It's their prerogative. Like I said, I don't think there is enough, certainly, demand for it to make it worthwhile. They got their own challenges right now and everything else, and games are so expensive. You're not going to take a risk on something that you might or might not. But back then, it would have made sense if a sequel came out in 2018, 2019, which would have been 2018 would have been very realistic, actually. And our sequel would have had multiplayer. Would have had I don't want to talk badly about anybody because everybody's always been wonderful to us, and it's never my intention. But there have been frustrations, and so every once in a while they come out.
Totally.
Maybe in a few years we'll sync up again for Cells Within and our new project.
I'm very curious for sure. Stay in the loop. But hey, thank you so much to everybody who watched or listened to this whole thing. Any help sharing it's appreciated. And you can always subscribe to MinnMax's YouTube channel if you enjoyed it. We have a whole playlist filled with other interviews like it. You can hear all about Shu's entire career. We just did that interview. That's up in the playlist right now. You can check it out. We didn't talk about the order though. I feel like I should have brought it up now in retrospect to get his thoughts on it. But thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next time. Goodbye. If you thought, hey, this video wasn't bad, well, there's a whole lot more like it on MinnMax's YouTube channel. Please help us out by subscribing to our channel and checking out the MinnMax Show podcast, also available on your favorite podcast app, the best, most thorough discussion about games on the internet with the deepest dive, our monthly community trivia show with prizes called Trivia Tower, and a whole lot more. Thanks so much for your support, everybody. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it.